3:30 in the morning. The ocean is pitch black. Fighter jets are already lined up on the flight deck, their engines whining in the darkness. Somewhere 200 feet below that deck, deep inside the belly of a nuclear-powered warship, 114 people are standing in kitchens so hot they'd fail every safety inspection in America. Their job? Feed 5,500 sailors. 3 full meals, every single day, plus a 4th meal at midnight for the night crew. That's 17,000 plates of food before most of the world even wakes up. One bad batch, one food poisoning outbreak, one missed service, and the most powerful warship ever built loses its combat edge. This is the hardest kitchen job in the world, and most people have never even heard of it. If you're new here, go subscribe and hit the bell. We cover the untold stories of military life that most channels never touch. When people picture an aircraft carrier, they see the jets, the weapons, the sheer floating size of it. But there is an entire world happening below that flight deck that almost nobody talks about. The USS Harry S. Truman is not just a warship. It is a floating city, home to over 5,500 sailors running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, projecting American power across every ocean on the planet. And like any city, those people need to eat. But this isn't a cafeteria. This isn't a fast food operation. This is feeding an entire town from scratch, while sailing through the middle of the ocean during active military operations in one of the harshest working environments on Earth. And the people responsible for making that happen are called Navy culinary specialists, and their job is far more critical than their title suggests. On a carrier, food isn't just fuel, it's morale. It's the smell of something familiar when you're 6 months away from your family. It's the one thing that reminds a sailor they're still human, even in the middle of a war zone. If you respect the hard work our military puts in every single day, drop the word "proud" in the comments right now. The scale of the operation. Let's start with the numbers, because they are genuinely hard to believe. On a normal day aboard a carrier like the Truman, the culinary team produces 17,300 meals. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midrats, which stands for midnight rations, a full hot meal served to sailors coming off the night watch. For context, and the busiest McDonald's in the United States serves roughly 4,000 customers a day. These Navy cooks are doing more than 4 times that volume, with real, cooked-from-scratch meals. The daily ingredient list reads like a wholesale warehouse order. Every single day, the galley burns through 1,600 pounds of meat, nearly a full ton of beef, chicken, pork, and fish. They consume 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, 30 cases of cereal, and brew 20,000 cups of coffee. That coffee alone would fill a small swimming pool by the end of the week. But none of this is random. Every single meal is calculated. Calories, macronutrients, fat content, sodium levels. The Navy mandates that male sailors hit 2,850 calories per day. Female sailors receive 2,100. Every dietary restriction, every food allergy, every religious requirement has to be tracked and accommodated. This isn't scooping food onto trays. This is precision nutrition delivered at military scale. And the bill? On the USS Gerald R. Ford, America's newest and most advanced carrier, the daily food cost runs between $45,000 and $65,000. That's over $1 million a month in groceries alone. But when you are keeping the finest fighting force on Earth fed and combat-ready, it is worth every single penny. The kitchens themselves. Now, let's talk about where this magic actually happens. Nimitz-class carriers have 5 galleys spread across the ship. The newer Ford class has two, one forward for the flight crew and one aft for everyone else. Every inch of those spaces is accounted for because on a warship, space is the most valuable commodity there is. You walk into one of these kitchens and it looks nothing like any restaurant you've ever visited. It looks like a factory that also happens to cook food. Industrial ovens capable of roasting hundreds of pounds of meat simultaneously. Kettles that hold 80 gallons of soup, enough to fill a standard bathtub to overflowing. Dough mixers that handle 60-pound batches, turning out fresh bread and rolls every single day. Fryers large enough to cook hundreds of pieces of chicken in a single run. Then there is the bakery. Fresh cookies come out of those ovens throughout the day. And that smell, warm cookies drifting through the corridors of a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, does something to a sailor that no motivational speech or leadership seminar ever could. It is a small piece of home in the middle of a very large ocean. But working in that bakery comes with a serious cost. Temperatures in there regularly hit 110 degrees or higher. It is an oven inside an oven. And the bakers work those brutal shifts every single day without complaint, because they understand exactly what those cookies mean to the crew around them. The culinary specialists. Here is something that surprises most people outside the military. The majority of Navy culinary specialists had never worked in a professional kitchen before they enlisted. As one senior specialist aboard the Truman put it, some came in as trained chefs, others had never boiled water. That is a direct quote, and somehow both types have to work together like a perfectly tuned machine. Training begins at the Navy's Culinary Specialist A School at Fort Lee, Virginia. The program covers knife skills, and advanced cooking techniques, nutrition science, kitchen safety, and food handling regulations. But the most important thing it teaches is how to think and operate at scale. Because cooking for 5 people and cooking for 5,500 are fundamentally different skills that require an entirely different mindset. When new specialists arrive on their first carrier assignment, reality hits fast. The pace is relentless. The heat is brutal. The expectations are sky high from day one. Equipment breaks down mid-service. Full batches of food sometimes have to be scrapped and remade from scratch with no warning. There are no sick days, no slow Tuesday afternoons, no calling in late. The carrier operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the galley matches it beat for beat. A breakfast shift cook is up at 03:30, and they are prepping food while the rest of the ship sleeps. Shifts run 12 to 16 hours. These sailors are on their feet the entire time, moving between stations, prepping, cooking, serving, and cleaning, then back at it again the very next morning. The menu and the variety. One of the most underrated and honestly impressive aspects of carrier food service is the variety they manage to pull off. The Navy runs a rotating menu system that cycles every 14 to 21 days. That means sailors are not eating the same meal twice in a 3-week window, which matters enormously when you are living and working in the same confined space for months at a time. The menu covers serious ground. There is Taco Tuesday, wildly popular on every single deployment, no exceptions. Mongolian Grill Nights, where sailors line up to customize their own stir-fry. Full holiday spreads with real turkey, stuffing, and all the sides for Thanksgiving. Prime rib on special occasions. Lobster for birthdays. These are not frozen meals heated up and dumped onto plates. These are restaurant-quality dishes prepared from scratch by people who take genuine pride in their craft. When the carrier operates near foreign ports, regional ingredients sometimes make their way into the rotation. Greek feta. fresh Italian pasta, Middle Eastern spices and seasonings. It gives sailors a small taste of the world they are sailing through, even if they never get the chance to set foot on shore. The logistics and resupply. Here is where things get complicated in a way most people never consider. An aircraft carrier cannot pull into a port every time it runs low on supplies. And these ships operate for months at a time without ever touching land. So how does a floating city of 5,500 people keep its kitchens fully stocked? The answer is a process called underway replenishment, and it is one of the most impressive logistical operations in the world. Every 7 to 10 days, a dedicated supply vessel pulls alongside the carrier while both ships are moving at speed across open ocean. Using a system of cables, pulleys, and rigging, they transfer somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million pounds of food. That is not a typo. 500,000 pounds of groceries transferred between two moving ships in the middle of the sea. Fresh fruits and vegetables, frozen meats, dairy products, dry goods, canned items. Everything the galley needs arrives in these massive coordinated deliveries and gets loaded into refrigerated storage areas below deck that look like commercial cold storage warehouses. Every pallet is inventoried. Every expiration date is tracked to the day. In an environment where space is limited and resupply is infrequent, waste is simply not an option. But storage creates its own challenges. Fresh produce does not last forever, even under refrigeration, so the menu naturally evolves as the days pass between resupply runs. Early in the cycle, there are fresh salads, crisp vegetables, and ripe fruit. As days go on, canned and frozen alternatives gradually take their place. The culinary specialists have to be creative enough to make preserved and frozen ingredients taste just as satisfying as fresh ones, and more often than not, they pull it off. The 24/7 operation. The carrier never sleeps, and neither does the galley. Meal service runs 22 hours per day. There is a 2-hour window carved out each day for deep cleaning, but even then, the ship's store stays open, offering snacks and quick options for sailors who miss regular service or simply need something between meals. Multiple shifts rotate through in careful sequence. The breakfast crew reports at 00:03:30. The lunch prep team begins around 0900. The dinner crew takes over mid-afternoon. The mid-rats team works straight through the night, serving the sailors who are on watch, standing their post, or finishing late operations. It is a carefully choreographed rotation where each shift hands off seamlessly to the next, keeping the machine running without interruption. And here is something that most people completely overlook. These cooks are also sailors. When the ship goes to general quarters, full battle readiness, every single person on board has an assigned station. The culinary specialists set down their equipment, report to their damage control positions, and train in firefighting, emergency response, and damage repair, just like everyone else aboard. Then, when the drill ends or the situation resolves, they go right back to the galley and finish service. The mission never stops for anything. What they eat after combat operations. And here is a detail that rarely makes it into any coverage of carrier life. What happens to the crew after high-intensity combat or training operations? When a flight crew finishes a demanding mission, their bodies have been through serious physical and mental stress. Adrenaline spikes. Blood pressure rises. Concentration has been at its absolute peak for hours. When those pilots finally get back to the ship and sit down in the mess, what they eat in the next 30 to 60 minutes directly affects how quickly they recover and how ready they will be for the next mission. The culinary specialists are aware of this, Senior cooks coordinate with medical and nutrition staff to ensure that post-operation meals are timed correctly and built to support recovery. High-quality protein to repair muscle fatigue. Complex carbohydrates to restore energy. Electrolytes to counteract the dehydration that comes with hours in a pressurized cockpit. This isn't accidental. It is deliberate, science-backed meal planning that treats food as part of the operational picture, not an afterthought. Morale and the human element. Let's be direct about what this job actually means beyond filling stomachs. Life on an aircraft carrier is difficult in ways that are hard to fully describe from the outside. Long hours in tight spaces, weeks or months without seeing sunlight, 6 to 9 months away from family. The stress never fully leaves. The danger is real and present. And the homesickness is something that hits hard in quiet moments. In that environment, a good meal is not a minor comfort. It is one of the only genuine pleasures available on the ship. And it is evidence that someone took time and care specifically for you. It is a connection to home, when home feels impossibly far away. The Navy has invested heavily in its culinary programs over the decades for exactly this reason. Not just because it is the right thing to do, but because the data is clear. A well-fed crew performs better, makes fewer errors, maintains better mental health, and stays more cohesive under pressure. The culinary specialists understand this responsibility at a personal level. They see the direct impact of their work on the faces of the people they serve every single day. When a pilot walks back from a dangerous mission and sits down to a hot plate of food someone made with care, that moment matters more than any briefing or debrief. When a young sailor far from home for the first time, one gets a birthday cake that the galley made specifically for them. That moment sticks with them for their entire career. When the whole crew wakes up to the smell of fresh coffee and bacon after a long, grinding night of operations, that smell is morale in its most tangible form. Senior culinary specialists often describe receiving handwritten notes from crew members. Sailors who took time out of exhausting days to write a few sentences thanking the galley for a specific meal. Officers who made formal commendations recognizing the galley's role in keeping morale intact during brutal deployments. These are not just cooks. They are a critical component of the ship's combat readiness. And the best ones know it. Training and career progression. The path to becoming a Navy culinary specialist is more demanding than most civilians realize. After completing basic training, candidates attend a school at Fort Lee. The curriculum is intense and deliberately designed to break down civilian habits and replace them with military-grade kitchen discipline. They learn to operate at scale from their very first week. There is no easing in. But the real education starts on the ship. New specialists typically spend their first deployment overwhelmed. The equipment is bigger than anything they trained on. The pace is faster. The expectations are higher. The consequences of failure are more serious. Most describe the first few months as the hardest professional experience of their lives. Over time, those who stay sharpen into some of the most technically capable food service professionals in the world. And they earn advancement ratings that move them from culinary specialist seaman all the way up to Master Chief, a rank that comes with management responsibility over the entire galley operation and dozens of subordinates. Many leave the Navy and go directly into senior positions in commercial food service. Hotels, restaurant groups, institutional catering operations at universities and hospitals, all of them actively recruit former Navy culinary specialists because the skill set and the work ethic are simply unmatched. The technology behind modern carrier kitchens. Modern aircraft carriers are not running on the same equipment that fed sailors in the 1970s. The galley technology aboard the Ford-class carriers represents a significant leap forward from even the Nimitz-class ships that are still in service. Computerized inventory systems track every item in storage in real time. Supply officers can see exactly what is on hand, what is expiring soon, and what needs to be requested at the next resupply, all from a single interface. This reduces waste, prevents shortfalls, and allows the culinary team to plan menus weeks in advance with precision. Modern commercial-grade cooking equipment includes programmable convection ovens that can be loaded with cooking programs for specific recipes. Combi steamers that use both steam and dry heat to cook large volumes of food precisely and consistently. Advanced ventilation systems that attempt, with limited success, to make working conditions inside the galley less punishing. The newer carriers have also redesigned galley layouts based on decades of operational feedback. Wider work corridors, better station organization, improved refrigeration access. Small changes that add up to real improvements in efficiency and safety when you are running those kitchens 22 hours a day. When things go wrong, no operation at this scale runs without problems, and the galley is no exception. Equipment failures are a constant reality. When you are running industrial machinery 20+ hours a day, 7 days a week, mechanical failure is not a question of if, it is a question of when. A broken oven mid-service is not an inconvenience. It is a crisis that has to be solved immediately without stopping the meal line. The culinary specialists develop an almost instinctive ability to improvise. If one oven goes down, they redistribute loads across remaining units. If a fryer fails, they find alternative cooking methods. And they problem-solve in real time, under pressure, while continuing to push food out to thousands of sailors who need to eat and get back to their stations. The heat is another perpetual challenge. Carrier galleys can reach 120 degrees or higher, especially near the grills and in the bakery. Add in the humidity from open cooking vessels, and it becomes a genuinely dangerous working environment. Sailors drink enormous amounts of water just to stay functional through a shift. Heat exhaustion is a documented medical concern, and the ship's medical staff keeps a close watch on the galley crew, particularly during high operations periods when the pace is most intense. Then the ocean moves. When seas get rough, every single task in the kitchen becomes a physical challenge. Pots slide off burners. Liquids spill. Walking in a straight line requires constant effort. Picture trying to ladle 80 gallons of boiling soup while the floor beneath your feet is tilting and rolling. These specialists train for it, adapt to it, and develop a physical intuition for working in a moving environment that takes months to build. But through all of it, broken equipment, brutal heat, rough seas, 16-hour shifts, the food goes out. Because the one outcome that is never acceptable is a hungry crew. Special events and what they mean. One dimension of carrier food service that deserves its own attention is what happens around special events. The Navy has a long tradition of marking milestones and holidays with special meals. These aren't token gestures. They are full productions that the culinary team plans weeks in advance and executes with everything they have. Thanksgiving on a carrier means real turkey, multiple birds roasted from scratch, along with mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pies, and all the trimmings that make it feel like home. The galley teams work extended shifts to pull it off, and the lines that form for those meals are among the longest of the entire deployment. Christmas gets a similar treatment. New Year's gets acknowledged. The Navy's birthday in October is marked with themed meals and celebration. The crossing the line ceremony, a centuries-old naval tradition when a ship crosses the equator for the first time, comes with its own food traditions that blend humor with genuine hospitality. These events carry significant weight for a crew that is months into a deployment. They mark the passage of time. They create shared memories. They reinforce that the people running this ship are valued as human beings, not just as operational assets. And behind every single one of those events is the culinary team that made it happen. The bigger picture. It is easy to focus on the jets when you think about what an aircraft carrier represents. That is what they are famous for, and rightly so. But the real power of these ships comes from the thousands of people who keep the entire machine functioning at peak performance. Every role matters. Every department contributes. And the culinary specialists are proof that the most essential work is often the least visible. Without them, there is no mission. Food poisoning sidelines dozens or hundreds of sailors at once. Poor nutrition degrades physical performance, mental sharpness, and reaction time. One low morale spreads through close quarters faster than any disease. The culinary specialists prevent all three of those outcomes every single day, from spaces most people will never see. When an F/A-18 launches off that flight deck to defend American interests somewhere in the world, the pilot at the controls was fed by a culinary specialist that morning. When the ship earns awards for operational readiness and combat effectiveness, the galley is part of that performance record. That is the reality of military service that tends to get lost in the coverage of guns, jets, and geopolitics. It is not only the warriors at the sharp end, it is the entire support infrastructure that keeps those warriors sharp, healthy, and ready. And on a nuclear aircraft carrier, and that infrastructure includes 114 dedicated culinary specialists who are up before the sun and do not stop until every single sailor has been fed. Conclusion. The next time you see footage of an aircraft carrier cutting through the ocean, think about what's happening below that flight deck. Think about 17,000 meals a day being prepared from scratch. Think about 120-degree kitchens running for 22 hours straight. Think about a cook who was on their feet at 3:30 in the morning, who has been working in brutal heat for 14 hours, who still has half a shift left, and who is putting genuine care into every plate because they know it matters to the person receiving it. These men and women are unsung heroes who serve heroes. Their names will not appear in news coverage of carrier operations. And they will not be featured in documentaries about American military power. But without them, none of it functions. Their contribution to this country's defense and to the daily well-being of 5,500 sailors cannot be measured in statistics alone. It lives in every hot meal served after a hard watch, in every birthday cake that appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the ocean, in every sailor who slept a little better because they went to bed full. That is the real power of the floating kitchen that never sleeps. If this gave you a new perspective on what military service actually looks like from the inside, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the men and women who serve this country. They have earned every bit of recognition we can give them.